Welcome to Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use.
Hi, welcome to Just Minding My Business. We are so glad that you're with us today and be able to be our listening audience. And if you have a pen and paper nearby, you just might get some information that you can use. Today we have coming to the mic Sheila Bryant, who is a clinical social worker who has a passion for people and helping them find spiritual, emotional, mental, and financial freedom and wellness. She has worked in the field of human services and mental health since 1996. She has experience working in after-school programs, foster care, youth diversion, psychiatric rehabilitation programs, outpatient mental health clinics, and school social work. In addition, she has worked with those dealing with depression, anxiety, ADHD, and much more. Sheila has a small private practice called Simply Living Blessed, LLC, where she provides individual and family therapy to adolescents and adults. Welcome, Sheila.
Hey, Sheila.
Hi,
You
Ruth.
doing?
Hi, Ida. How are you?
I'm doing good. Well, you've been around the block.
Yes, I have. I have worked in a lot of different arenas. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just ask you, I like beginnings. How did you decide that this is what you wanted to do?
Wow. I don't even know if I decided. I think it kind of chose me. When I was in college, I went to undergraduate for business, right? I had gone to Penn State and went to the School of Business, thinking that I was going to be in finance, and to put it mildly, I sucked. I did horrible in my finance classes. I did horrible in my accounting classes. Depreciation made no sense to me. So then I started to seek. Something different. And so I had done some interest inventories, and it actually led me to like helping people, talking to people. And that was interesting because I had some friends that, especially a specific friend in high school, that his girlfriend would have issues, and they would always call me. I'm like, why y'all calling me? Because you my counselor. I'm like, no, not really. And I don't want to be. And so everything pointed to counseling. And so at that time I did what's called Rehabilitation Services Education, which is rehab counseling. And it was actually under the College of Education. And then I moved here to Maryland. I worked in a drug treatment program, actually as an administrative assistant, because I needed a job and I had rent to pay. And then from there, I went into working at what's now called the PRP program. It wasn't even called PRP back in '96. I don't even know what it was called then. It was like a wraparound program or what have you. And eventually I went back to school, got my master's degree in social work. So I have always been, since I've lived here, in the field of human services in some way. And back then when I graduated from college, I was like, oh, I'm going to do drug counseling. And I worked at the drug treatment program. And that was cool. And I was like, adults a little hard and crusty and they don't really want to change. I think I want to work with children, which is when I did the PRP. When I did the PRP, it was actually a program that focused on children.
Oh, okay.
And so, and PRP is psychiatric rehabilitation program. That's what it stands for. But at that time, it didn't really have that name, and we were providing like wraparound services, so we could literally be with kids, see kids like every single day back then. So that's where I started, and then you kind of see all of the arenas that I've worked in. And so I've gone back and forth between working with children and adults. Now I currently work in my full-time job with children. And I've also done like supervision of other social workers in the mental health field and all that other kind of stuff. So I also bounce back and forth between administrative, doing supervision, and doing direct care. So
okay. Well, it seems like children is your niche. That's what it sounds like to me.
I don't know.
Now, what do you find in today's world with the kids that you work with? What are some of the major issues that you see going on?
So coincidentally, my full-time job is in the middle school. And so before I started working in the middle school, you probably could have never told me that all the things that go on in the middle school actually go on. And so a lot of the major stuff, you see quite a bit of, you see quite a bit of like acting out, but a lot of times you have a lot of children who are very, very angry. And that shows up in different ways. You see, one of the things that I think was really surprising for me when I started working in the middle school is how often children now say things like, I want to die, I want to kill myself. So, doing quite a bit of risk assessment to determine whether this is actually a real threat or whether this is, I'm mad and I don't know how to put words to my anger. And so to show you just how mad I am, I want to die. I don't want to be here anymore. And so I oftentimes, that's the conversation I have with kids when they initially come to me. Saying that is, when I explain to them who I am and what I do. And so I always tell them, especially if they're children that do not know me, I'll say to them, I said, okay, so somebody sent you to me. And I'll explain to them, I'm like, I have a caseload of kids in the school, but one of the other things that I do, if somebody says that they want to hurt or harm somebody else or hurt or harm themselves, I have to determine whether they can be safe or not. And I'll give that parameter, and then I'll ask them something like, so, okay, so this person sent me to you, why? And sometimes they'll beat around the bush, that kind of thing. So I'll have that conversation with them. And if it's a situation where, and I kind of quantify it for my, I explain to them, when you say you don't want to be here anymore, you mean at this school, in this world. And in some instances, kids say not in this school, and some people say not in this world. And I'll ask them, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Because people say that, but so I'll ask them, does that mean that you don't want to see your mom anymore? You don't want to see your dad anymore? You don't want to see your siblings anymore? Because not being here is what that means. And what you find a lot of times with children is they struggle putting words to whatever it is I'm feeling. So anger is a very easy emotion to identify, right? But most anger is not just anger. Anger comes from either hurt or disappointment. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Anger comes from a myriad of places. And people just go straight for the anger, if that makes sense. And there's actually nothing wrong with anger. That's a normal emotion. We all have it. We all feel it. It's really just about how you respond to it and how you act out. So I see a lot of that working with children nowadays. I didn't see that before I got into the school system. There was a lot of behavioral difficulties. You see a lot of, I kind of question, we have a lot of children with an ADHD diagnosis. I often question whether that ADHD is really depression, only because you look at a child and you say, well, they're not focusing and they're not getting any work done. But if you look at depression makes it hard for you to focus, and it makes it hard for you to get work done. It makes it hard for you to concentrate. And as a child, it shows up, I guess, kind of differently. You know what I'm saying? I think it's easy to assume that an adult who's not getting any work done and who's not sleeping at night or is sleeping too much and all these other things, we can easily say, okay, they're depressed. But when a child is showing those same symptoms and it goes along with not being able to focus, not being able to concentrate, that kind of thing, then it's also easy to say that it's ADHD. And sometimes, honestly, I kind of wonder, especially if you have that coupled with a child being extremely angry.
Okay. Wow. What are you finding as you talk to these young ones, talking in general? What is the source of the angst that they're going through? Are there some general parameters that you could share with our listening audience?
You know what? This world that we are living in now is drastically different than the world that I grew up in. And I'm sure the world that you guys grew up in. Absolutely. So you have this overexposure to information. And I think that has its it has its pros, but I think it also has its cons, because now you are exposed. Like, for instance, let's just say reality TV. Reality TV was not a reality when I was growing up. It just was not. Right. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, you watch TV and you know, I'm just giving this as an example. You watch Good Times and you know the Evans had their set of issues. You know what I'm saying? But then later on in life, you watch the Cosby Show and they had a different set of issues. But what you did not see was people's real life drama playing out on TV. And sometimes it's fake life drama, but it's still real life drama, if that makes sense. Right. And so I think one of the major things that's impacting our youth is, you know, is the fact that most of everything that's going on television, you know, if you're not watching Disney Channel, you watching YouTube, you know what I'm saying? Right. Or some reality show. There's not even, there's not a whole lot going on in between on television nowadays. So I think that's something that's a major impact. So you have this overexposure of information, that in some ways can empower our children, but I think it cripples them at the same time, because some of them things that we had to take the time to figure out and just to endure, as children, they don't have to. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, you at least in my generation, I was what is it called? A latchkey kid. You know, I had to come home. My parents worked. Wasn't nobody going to jail because your parents was at work, and you had to come home as a little kid and be home for an hour or two, you know, or whatever. And so that's what I had to do. So that kind of fostered, and I had an older sister that was 3 years older than me. But when we were in elementary school, which is a private school, I got out of school about an hour earlier than her. So I was home before anybody got home, right? And so what happens when those things happen, as quiet as it's kept, and I probably will say a lot of things that probably go against research, but that fostered a level of independence. You know what I'm saying? There were some skills that you just knew. You know what I'm saying? And so, because you didn't have really a choice. And so, but because our children, one, are exposed to information, there are a lot of entitlements that we just did not have. You know, I had to explain to my daughter, you know what a cell phone is. When I was growing up, there was no cell phone, dear. It was, you know what I'm saying? You grew up in a world with computers and iPads and cable TV. All that stuff exists for you. You know, you see the video game. We had the dot Atari hitting the thing back and forth. And so, right. And so, I mean, I'm definitely, you know, I'm sure I'm dating myself, but at any rate, I think that all of that plays a part, because there are some things that you had to, as a child, we had to be creative. We had to make our fun. It wasn't colorful, flowery things that kept us entertained on TV that much. So you had to make up games. You know what I'm saying? You had to go outside. You had to get dirty. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know, your parents were like, listen, and not only did you have to go outside, you had to stay out there. Don't you come back in here unless you're staying in here. And so we were, in some ways it was fun, but we were forced to play. We were forced to engage. Yes. And what happens is when that stuff happens, that builds social skills. You understand what I'm saying? That teaches you how to engage people. Our children are engaging with the device. Yeah. And with people on a headset. So you don't have the benefit of reading a facial expression. You know what I'm saying? So I believe that all of those things have an impact. You know what I'm saying? And then if you start talking about bullying and social media and the fact that when we went to school, somebody picked on you, you was picked on at school, and guess what? They didn't pick on you again till tomorrow when you saw them at school. Right. There was no lingering post about you. There was nobody dropping in your inbox, calling you beads and nasty names and calling you stupid. So there also was not this inundation of negativity. We were protected in that way, you know? And so I think that, honestly, you know, technology is beautiful and I love it when it's used responsibly. Right. But it's being used for so many other things. So I think that is a thing that has had a major impact on our children.
I have to agree with you on that. Absolutely. And then I think because parents are really engaged with that technology, you know, they're not setting limits a lot of times, you know, a lot of times, like, we could go to bed and they still got their phones in their room.
Right.
You say, put the phone down. We need to probably go as far as taking the phone.
Right.
Yeah, because I think that plays a huge part on the behavior.
And I think it also has to do with how you engage your children. So this past holiday season, my husband got my children phones, right? And I was like, they 9 and 10, they ain't nowhere that we don't know where they are, what they need phones for. They with people with phones,
Right.
And so, so I listen, that's just who I am. So I said I say to them, I told my daughter, I said, so I'm gonna want y'all to plug your phones in my room. I don't want you to be on the phone all night. And so it's interesting because a lot of times she watches the same stuff on her phone as she actually watches on TV, but she just watches it on her phone. But one of the things that she said to me, and this was this morning, her phone is sitting I have a little like mini refrigerator in my room, and I have a hub where you can plug in all these different USBs, and that's where all the phones get plugged in. Mm-hmm. So she looks at her phone, she was like, oh my God, I think I got to get out this group. And I was like, now she's 10, mind you. Like, what group is that? And it's her dance friends from her dance school. She was like, but Ma, they be texting early in the morning. I'm not doing that early in the morning. I barely want to get out of bed.
Right.
And they, I get up and it's all of these, like it's a continuing thread. And she was like, okay, but that kind of speaks volumes, because I'm like, for real, like, put your phone there. Like she hear the text messages go off and she's irritated. And honestly, it actually kind of makes me happy that she is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
setting boundaries.
Yeah, because at least she understands. She's like, why they sending these messages early in the morning? I'm like, girl, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But you don't have to look at them and you don't have to respond. Right. She was like, Ma, it's just a lot. So even in the message when they're talking about, oh, we got practice this day. And I'm like, Elon, that's not on the paper. Well, such and such said. I said, girl, y'all in these phones are killing me. You know what I'm saying? Because it kind of gives, in some ways, like children, like this false sense of control. But at the end of the day, yes. You know what I'm saying? Your parents are still very much so responsible for you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, you have control, but you don't. You know what I'm saying? You're still a kid. There's some things that you're just not going to be able to work out for yourself. So I think that it is important that when you have them, that you have those boundaries, or, I mean, fortunately for me, my daughter come tell me she was having an issue with a girl at her school, and she told me the girl posted something on TikTok about it, and I was like, she let me see it. And I said, okay, so this is a problem. I'm gonna send a message to the principals and stuff at your school so they could know, because she's had this ongoing kind of conflict with this girl. And, and I let them know. And I was really clear with them in the email, like, listen, I tell my children to walk away. I tell my children to do the right thing. But if it comes to the point that she has to defend herself, I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody's going to be putting hands on my child and you just, letting it slide. And so it ended up that the girl actually, from what I understood, was not going to be enrolled in the school anymore. And so it wasn't going to be a problem. Well, I mean, it would be a problem, but they would not be engaged in school. So it should not be, you know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. But that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, where, if as a kid you do a little, a post, a musically or a TikTok video to whatever little song, and you got somebody on your page saying, "Ooh, you ugly, you fat, why you do?" You know what I'm saying? All of that stuff plays a part. Not just kids, people are mean. And so, like I said, you have this sense of being able to touch everybody in the world. That's the beauty of the internet and social media. But the downside of it is everybody in the world can also touch you back, and sometimes in ways that are not the best.
Don't feel good.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, what are the schools in terms of, are they doing educational programs about social media and things like that on a regular basis?
Honestly, as far as I know, my school, not that I've seen. And so I think what happens is, as far as the educational system is concerned, I oftentimes think what happens is there's an assumption that because these children are technologically savvy, that they're technologically savvy. Does that make sense? I know that sounded crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I'll give you an example. We have devices in our schools. Our children get computers that they can take home, that they're supposed to be doing their homework on and all of that other kind of stuff. And so, you know, there's the assumption because children know how to be on Instagram and Snapchat and use filters and all that other kind of stuff. So now they have this device for educational purposes, and you know they're doing things, putting this a program called like Siphon that they'll put on it so they can get on YouTube and all that other stuff because they have a lot of that stuff blocked. But there's the assumption because they can do that, they also know how to use a Microsoft Word program and type. You know what I'm saying? They don't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they know how to use technology for entertainment purposes, but I don't think that children have learned how to use it for educational purposes. So that's one. I don't find, I'm trying to figure out where there would even be a place in school to talk about social media in the sense of, you know, you have your math and you have your English language arts, you have your reading, you have your math assistance class. I don't know if they would cover that in health, or even in the social studies or history, but where they would cover that. But it's definitely something that's needed, you know, to teach them how to use social media responsibly. But that's honestly, I also feel like that's a parental job.
Yeah, but I think nowadays, I think it's everybody's responsibility because
I agree.
I work with the Roundtable for Education, and that's what we did. We went out to schools talking about the STEM program, but also talking about social media, you know, because on social media, whatever you put out there stays out there.
Digital footprint.
Yes, and now employers are checking Facebook
social media pages. Yep.
Social media, and that was one of the things that we talked with the kids about is using social media responsibly, and what happens when they put derogatory things on Facebook, how it can affect them later on when they probably no longer at that stage in life.
Right.
So we try to teach them about that. And also, you know, the whole idea of the program is to get the kids to take certain classes so that they could be college ready.
Okay.
And also throwing in life skills as well.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We had the home ec back in the day. We had all of that kind of stuff.
Wood shop.
Right.
I remember building something with wood and sanding it down and shellacking it the whole 9 yards and sewing, home ec, like you said, sewing and baking cakes and all that kind of stuff. You know.
And I think I saw on the news where some schools during the school day have actually taken the cell phones.
Yeah. We actually I don't know, maybe about 2 months ago, a month ago, my principal sent out a survey asking us about cell phones, like, you know, and it was more so to the teachers, like, are cell phones a problem in your class? You know, that kind of thing. And
what did they find?
Well, a lot of the teachers did say that they felt like the cell phones were the problem. Well, they felt like we should really have no cell phones in school. Now, some of them, but it's I'm gonna say something that's probably real interesting. Some of it, some children actually use, like, if they don't have their device, they'll use their cell phone to do their work and that kind of thing. But the most interesting piece is that we have parents who call and text their children during the day in school.
Oh no!
Oh Lord!
Seriously?
Listen. Seriously.
Seriously.
Call and text their child. Oh, well, I'm texting my mother. Why is she texting you back in the middle of the day?
Right.
I don't understand. So I remember my son was in his senior year of high school, and at that point he only had like 1 or 2 periods, and then he got out of school at like 10:30 because, you know, he was a senior, he had all his credits, whatever. So I text, like, I would send him a message, but not for him to respond. I'm sending you a message because it crossed my mind. In about 10 minutes, I'm going to forget. So I'm just really sending you FYI. And I remember he responded to me, and it was about 11 o'clock. And I don't even think I read what he said. My response was like, why are you texting me? You in school? He was like, I get out at like 10:30. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot, my bad. And that's okay. But my thing is like, listen, you know, if there's something wrong with you, if you are hurt, if you need me, they should be calling me from the office. You should not be calling me from your cell phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
You know, so if you text me in the middle of the day and you're in school, we're going to have a problem, and you're probably going to lose your phone because there's no reason for you to be talking to me during the day.
Right.
Oh, that's excellent.
You're in school, but we have parents who call their children at school, text their children all day for whatever. This person bothering me. I don't even know. Listen. If you're not calling to say, baby, don't come home, the house is burning down. And as far as I'm concerned, you can do that at the end of the school day because that's going to ruin their whole day. I can't imagine there's any circumstance that you're calling in the middle of the day.
Right. There really isn't. There really isn't.
That's just me, but I'm probably old school. And as I say to my kids, I'm like, I'm probably older than y'all parents. So some of my kids in the middle school, I'll be older than most of y'all parents. So, you know, yeah.
So when you're working with your kids and they're like the anger coming out, what do you do to try to get to like root causes of the actions?
It kind of depends because when we are, so in school, it would probably be a little bit different. No, let me say this. In school, it will be a lot different than in therapy because in school, my goal for the most part is to be able to get you to the point or to be able to function to the point where you can meet your academic goals, which is doing your schoolwork and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's different than in therapy where I'm working with you about your whole life, if that makes sense, if you will. Okay. You know, and so if I'm dealing with a child that's angry, and this is in school or in therapy, and there's a specific situation, I kind of have them to backtrack to me everything that happened. Mm-hmm. So we can figure out at what point did you get angry? Why is this thing a trigger to you? And in some instances, even when I've been in therapy, I've watched children say, well, she said this, that, and other thing that maybe they thought the parent said, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, that's not what they're saying. That's not what their words were, you know, and they'll continue, no, they said, I'm like, no, this is exactly what they said. Well, I feel like they meant but that's not what they said. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, often, this is with all of us. This is not just with children. Mm-hmm. We have a tendency to infer what we think people mean by what they said, by what we took away from their tone, by what that tone means to us, by how that made me feel. Mm-hmm. And I say to people, oftentimes feelings are not based in reality. Mm-hmm. Feelings are not even based on facts. Feelings are based on perception. It's what you perceive. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You can feel something and what you felt somebody said is not what they meant at all.
Right.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so,
yes.
You know, so then it becomes, if this is your perception of what they said, they're telling you they mean this, but you feel like they meant that, then why? Because most of the time it's because some other experience that I've had.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That when you interacted with me in that manner, it touched the same exact thing in this experience. Yeah. I don't necessarily recognize it to be different because it makes me feel like that experience. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm going to respond in kind. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm the kid that hates to be yelled at because when my mother yells at me, it causes me to feel her disappointment. And now I'm at school and the principal is yelling at me. I might pop off because it takes me all the way back to what mommy did last night that don't have nothing to do with the principal.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
in your therapy, in your practice, do you handle it that way? Do you kind of like explain to them that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't so it's funny because when I do therapy, people ask me, so are you the therapist that says, well, how does that make you feel? Well, how does that make you feel? Well, how does that make you feel? And they're like, because I hate that. And I was like, so yeah, no, that's not who I am. So I'm pretty much so consistently who I am. So if you're in therapy with me and I've actually built a relationship with you, if I think that you're doing something crazy, and I don't mean crazy, mentally ill crazy, like crazy doesn't make sense crazy, I'm going to say to you, okay, so that sounds crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really quite sure why you did that, or why did you think that you had this reaction? Because I mean, a lot of what you do in therapy is building a relationship, but it's building relationship for a purpose. You know what I'm saying? It's not just building a relationship so we can kick it and we can be friends, but it's so I can build this connection to understand you, to help you through your therapeutic hurdles. You know what I'm saying? So then going down the line, when this situation comes up and it looks the same and it feels the same, but the person is different, maybe you might be able to look at that person and say, wait a minute, their intention may not be the same. And even though it feels the same, you know what I'm saying? I might be able to do, but that usually takes work and time and, and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's definitely a process.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious to know, of the two groups, adolescents and adults, which group do you find to be the most, not rewarding, but the group that catches on, gets it fastest, and makes the changes, the deepest changes?
Wow. That's a hard question. And I don't know if anybody catches it sooner than the other because it's definitely individualized. I have worked with children just throughout time that I remember one of the first kids that I worked with in this, what is now called the PRP program. I saw her, and at the time I was working with her, I was like 20, maybe 23, like in my early 20s. And she's a grown woman now, like well in her 30s. Heck, she might, I don't know, well in her 30s at least. And I remember years later, I saw her and she said to me, she was like, Sheila, I don't know how you and my mother dealt with me. Like I was awful. And she actually, and it was funny because she actually grew up and started working in a group home and working with girls and so forth and so on. And she was just like, I was awful. She was like, I don't even know. She said, when I look at some of the things that I did, I was awful. And I didn't say, girl, you were, even though sometimes it was kind of like, oh my God, what is going on with you? So I've had those people. I mean, I can say more likely that I've had more children come back years and years later and say, I remember when you said this to me. I remember another girl that I worked with, and she said to me, I was leaving a job, and she said to me, she was like, I was Sherrod. Then she said, Miss Sherrod, she said, I do not always do the right thing. She was like, I do not always do the right thing. She said, but I swear I can hear your voice in my head saying, don't do that. And I was like, wow. I was kind of like, wow. I was like, she was like, and I know I don't make the right decisions, I know I'm not making the right decisions. She said, but I can hear you talking me through some things. I was like, wow. So I get that from kids, but then I've had my adult clients who say, I've had different ones. I have one now that I've been working with. I was working with her at another agency, and I work with her in my private practice. And I look at how she manages things now, and she says that she even have people who have known her over time, like, oh my God, I gotta give Miss Sheila a hug. You ain't cursing people out and trying to fight everybody. You know what I'm saying? And so, and even I acknowledge, like, wow, you have really grown. There's some things that I remember. I can tell you how you would have handled it, And so I think that I don't know if you could put an age on either, who gets it quicker. I think it depends on who you are, how open you are to change. You know what I'm saying? So I wish I could say, kids and adults, but if you are, the kids that have come back to me and said it, this has been years later. So, you know what I mean? I don't even know when it clicked for you. What I said made sense. You know what I'm saying? In some instances. So I just think it really depends. I don't know if it's adults or children. I think that you just have to be open and willing to say, you know what, maybe I could try something different and try it consistently and see if I get a different result. So I think it has more to do with that than really age. So,
now, one other question I have for you. The stigma that we currently have around mental
health.
In your opinion, what are some of the things that people can do to get over that piece of the stigma that's out there? Because a lot of times they don't come see people like you because they feel shame or they feel like people are going to ridicule or whatever. So what do you have to say in terms of supporting people to get the help that they need from the neck up?
Right. I would say treat mental health like you treat any other illness. So, so let me say this. Some people don't treat their medical health well. So let me start with, let me say that. Truth. Let's be real honest. But how about we treat it like everything else? You know what I'm saying? Do you, and some people do. Do you not take your heart medicine because you care about what somebody gonna think?
Yeah, true that.
Or would you rather not have the heart attack? You know what I'm saying? Right. I'm just saying. Do you not take your metformin or your insulin or your Novolin or your Novolog because somebody gonna feel some kind of way that you gotta dip off to the bathroom and take this needle before you eat or take your pill in the morning? If we treat mental illness like we treat getting our nails and our nails and our feet done, you understand what I'm saying? Because really, it's about wellness. And the thing about it, I think the most interesting piece is part of the issue is people think if I go talk to a therapist, that means I'm sick, right? But when you do an annual checkup to the doctor, that don't mean you sick. That means you trying to stay well.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So I think if we look at it differently, if we didn't give people the side eye when they say, yeah, I go to a therapist. You know what I'm saying? Do we give people the side eye when they say I gotta go to the dentist? I gotta get a root canal. You know what I'm saying? Do we give people the side eye when we say, oh, I got my annual visit tomorrow? We don't say, girl, what's wrong with you? You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
We just assume that they're doing something for their health. And so I think the mistake that people make is that people have a tendency to think that everybody that goes in front of a therapist is chronically mentally ill, that they are a schizophrenic that's paranoid and delusional and hearing voices and all of these other things. Listen, that's what it is. When you hear somebody, what's wrong with them? That's what people say. I remember working in the foster care agency and sitting down with a bunch of foster parents, and we were talking about stuff. Well, I don't have a problem with the child that I'm servicing getting therapy and this, that, and the other stuff. And so I asked them a question. I said, so if I came in here and I told you that I went to a therapist, would you be okay with that? And the room got quiet.
Huge stigma.
So my question becomes, so there's an issue with getting help?
Right.
So, or do you wait until you have a full mental breakdown and you can't function?
Right.
Or do you talk to somebody and say, you know what, I got some stuff that I need to sort out. I have some things that I need to work out. Listen, I tell people all the time, after my first marriage was over, I had to go to the therapist. I had to. Because I needed to identify my role in how this thing fell apart.
Right.
I need to make sure I'm okay. So if we're real honest about the fact that we need help, because we make this thing sound like it's cancer. I mean, let's be real honest. And I have a myriad of people that I know that have survived various kinds of cancer. But when people say, I have cancer, we rally around them. We support them. We pray for them.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody posted on Facebook, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, or I suffer from clinical depression, do we offer that same support?
No.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Or do we act like we don't even want to be associated with them because we don't want anybody to think, oh, that might be me too?
Or they may act funny.
Yeah, and so how about we need to be honest about our stuff? Because how about this? Let's be clear. If I looked at everybody I know, I could find everybody in a DSM-5, I'm sure. Now, they may not be clinically diagnosed, but they might fit some description. You know what I'm saying?
You got that right.
You know what I'm saying?
We've all been dropped.
Absolutely. That's just the truth of the matter. But these are just human beings. And the thing about it is I think that a lot of our people, there are a couple of things that suffer from mental illness, have suffered different levels of trauma that they haven't moved past. So, and it could be different traumas. And trauma could be your parents being divorced to you being sexually abused. You know what I'm saying? Everything affects everybody differently. But that's the same in our physical health. There are some people who can eat Pepsi, drink Pepsis, eat cake, eat all kinds of sugar, and they never get diabetes.
Right.
They can eat all kinds of refined starches and never have any sign of heart disease. And you can have somebody who lived the healthiest lifestyle that's vegan, don't eat anything processed, and they got diabetes.
Right. That's right.
Because we have this thing that's also called genetics and heredity and all of the environmental factors that impact it. It is the same thing with mental health.
Yes.
It really is. And if we looked at it like that, I tell people all the time, I'm like, with medication, I just stopped the medication. Well, why? Because I ain't like the way it make me feel. Okay. Would you stop your heart medication? Or would you be like, I want to know. Would you just stop it? Would you stop your chemo because you didn't like the way it felt? No, you probably would go back to the doctor and say, I don't like the way this makes me feel. Can we lower the dose? Can we adjust it? Can we do something that? And I'm not necessarily an advocate for medication.
Right.
But I do feel like it has its place.
Yeah.
And so if we normalized it, if we stop making people feel bad because they have issues.
Yes, and that's
because we all have them.
Yes.
We all have
all of us have.
I can guarantee you there's probably not many people on the planet that, even though not clinically depressed, have not had a bout of depression.
Right.
Yeah. That's right. I know I've been depressed.
Or at least an episode. There is probably rarely anybody on the planet that has not experienced some level of anxiety. Even if it's not to the point of being completely and totally debilitating. And then you have people that'll say, I've never experienced any of those things. And it may be true for them. They may not have experienced any of those things, but they could also be emotionally numb. So
there you go. You're like in total denial.
You know what I'm saying?
So that's a problem right there.
Yeah, it is. But now I'm smiling all the time. I'm happy all the time. Really, all the time, no matter what happens. So
you're taking happy pills.
Yeah, I'm just saying. And so I think if we got to be more honest, and we got to be more honest. I think when we're honest about our battle of depression, or if we're honest about our anxiety, or if we're honest about our panic attack, if we're honest about, you know what I'm saying? If we're a little bit more honest about it, then maybe people will feel okay with saying, yeah, I do experience anxiety. Yeah, I have said, and the truth of the matter, even with depression, I say this all the time with Black women, I don't think that depression show up for us like it does in the books. I believe that there are a lot of women that get up, they go to work every day because we got to do it.
Right.
Yes.
That are walking around are clinically depressed. They're not doing anything that makes them happy.
Exactly.
They're not doing anything that brings them joy.
Absolutely.
They're doing only what they have to do. They're not enjoying life. They're not, you know what I'm saying? I mean, so because we're not sitting in the dark room, shut up, crying all day, sleeping all day, somebody think that we're doing just fine. I can probably guarantee you that ain't the truth.
No, it's not the truth. We know from, if we really go back and look at our own families, I can look at my mother, and she was, quote unquote, a strong Black woman. But looking back and just really understanding her from this perspective, she was clinically depressed.
Yeah.
She was raising 2 children by herself, abandoned by her husband. Come on. We're strong, but we're not that strong. Right. Our hearts hurt. And mentally, there are things that just go across that they hurt so deeply, they scar so deeply, that for us, we've always been taught, you have to keep going.
Yeah.
You can't stop. You can't let that hold you back. You just have to keep going. But some of the scars are so deep. And what's interesting is that sometimes what they're seeing now is that that scarification, if you want to put it, is being passed on to the children. And we're probably coming into the first generation. What I'm hearing are young people who are more aware of their own mental health. And they will say, if they're given the opportunity to say, well, has this happened? Is this what's going on with you? They'll say, oh, yeah, that goes on in my household. Yeah, I've experienced that. But it's the first time. So there, in all the craziness, there's still a place for healing. And that healing is going to come perhaps through this younger generation who's willing to admit, yeah, that goes on in my family. Yeah, but I need help. That's a real hopeful situation. Because I know for my generation and generations past, you did not admit to anything. People died. They took secrets to the grave about what really happened in their family, what really happened in their lives. Talk about it. And but not ask.
Nope.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Wow. This has been awesomeness.
Thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation.
You are very welcome.
You give us your info, your practice.
Yeah. So, well, you know what? Honestly, my practice has gotten very small. So I don't know if I ever told you. I actually closed my actual office down. And so I'm kind of in the revamping phase. But, if you do need to contact me, my email address is slb972@hotmail.com. I could be contacted by cell phone, 443-255-5408. And one of the things, even though currently I'm not taking new clients right now, is one of the things that I have been doing is I have people who reach out to me and it's like, can you take, or do you know anybody who can take? So, I call it tapping my therapeutic tree. My network of other social workers and counselors that I'll reach out to, and then I'll share with them that this is what's going on with that person, kind of briefly, this is their insurance. Can you take this person and share them as a resource? So I'm definitely there, if nothing else, is to help people to find resources to get what they need so they can get healthy.
Yes. And I like your style. I like your style. It's like, please, girl, think about what you just said.
And you know what?
Hear yourself say it.
It's funny because in this way I am consistently who I am. So that this is, people like, do you really talk to your kids at school like that? I said, I absolutely do. Like, I'll tell them, listen, I'm that person. I'm like no other social worker that you've not seen in that sense. They're saying, well, I don't like what you're saying to me. Listen, you knocked on my door. You can see yourself right on that other side if you're not okay with what I'm saying to you. I'm trying to help you. I'm consistently Yeah,
that's
I,
good.
People think. That's real critical. Making people think.
Mm-hmm. And they will appreciate it. If they don't appreciate it now, they'll appreciate it later.
I hope, that when I engage with somebody, and when you do this kind of work, I can honestly say you do not always feel good about the work you do. You just don't. You know what I'm saying? Because it can get heavy. It can get daunting. I've learned over the years, even at one point I had clients ask me, how do you do this? How do you listen to our stories, and how do you do this? And I honestly say to them, and this is the truth, I don't know where I learned this, but I honestly said to them, I said, when this session is over, I don't think about it again until I'm getting ready to meet you again or put it on paper. That's it. And I'm like, and it's not because I don't care, but if I carry the load of all the people that I've seen over time, all the children that I've interacted with, in my, now going on 4 years in the school system, I'd be a wreck, and y'all would probably be visiting me in the padded room somewhere. And listen, and I'm not mad. If that's what I need, then that's what I need. But you learn not to carry it all.
Right.
Some people don't. Yeah, some people don't learn not to carry it all, which is why they get out. You know what I'm saying? But you kind of learn not to carry it home. When I'm here with my family, we got our whole own set of woes at home. So I'm not here thinking about what happened with my client earlier, because I'm wrangling kids, that kind of thing. And so you learn how to cut it off. But I mean, there is a great work to be done. There are plenty of people who need help that still have not sought it, and even in this new age where therapy has become a little bit more popular amongst us, you know what I'm saying? We still have people who struggle. We have people who will put their children in therapy, but you won't go. I mean, and if we real honest, you might need to be in therapy more than the child, because if you were in therapy, the child wouldn't need it.
There you go.
Exactly. There you go.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's the truth. I mean, some of our children's problems are their parents. And don't get me wrong, the parents are doing the best they can with what they have. Even when you're not doing good parenting, it's probably the best that you can give at that time of yourself.
Right.
But maybe if you got some help, you could give a little bit more.
Exactly.
Because I was thinking that if the child has to go, it seems like it should be a family.
I mean, most good therapists, let me say this, are going to say to you, I used to say this to parents, well, listen, I need you to be clear about if you're going to bring your child, I'm going to work with your child, but your child lives with you. So that means I'm going to have to work with you too. There's some parents that, they want to dump their children off in therapy and say, fix my child. But, and then in some situations, I have told children, I said, check this out. Mama not ready. So what we have to teach you is how to function normal in the rest of the world while you're living in chaos.
That's intense.
We gotta now teach you how to function out there, because sometimes the culture that people live in, if you live in a culture where you gotta fight and you gotta steal and you gotta cuss and you gotta scream to survive, and now you walk somewhere else, you can't walk into a job cussing and screaming and fighting to survive. So this may be the world that you live in, but this is not necessarily the world that everybody else lives in or function in. So we got to teach you how to function here, even if life at home is like this. So at least now you can function in the world, because how people tend to show up is their dysfunction in the world. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm acting out at school. I'm having issues at work. I'm not getting along with these people, and everybody I come in contact with, I'm not getting along with.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of conversations that are going to come out of this conversation.
This has just been awesome, and that our audience is really getting it, because I mean, we got to take care of the neck up.
We got to take care of the neck up. We got to do it. We have to do it. And we have to, all of those things for those adults that have been carried on since childhood that's never gotten resolved. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? If you don't resolve them, if you have children, you have a tendency to play it out with your children. And that's how what we have when we have these generational curses. That's how that happens, because nobody's talking about it. So we gotta learn how to keep our business. And I'm not against, as a Black family, keep your business and you don't tell nobody our business. So you got to learn how to keep the business in the house, but there's some business that can't stay in the house.
Absolutely.
It's some business that you got to talk about. If you uncomfortable every time we go to Uncle Jimmy's house, we got to talk about that. So we don't go to Uncle Jimmy's house, and don't nobody else go to Uncle Jimmy's house. And
exactly.
And Uncle Jimmy ain't invited nowhere with no kids. He family, and we love him.
But he can't come. He's not.
He can't. Because
And if he's anywhere around, everybody's eyes are on him.
Right.
Exactly.
So so we got to learn how to have those hard conversations without,
And you're going to feel so much better once you let it go. It's going to be relief, even though you still may have more work to do, but just that initial let go.
Right.
Be able to tell somebody.
Oh, yeah. It's going to bring some huge peace in that moment.
Yeah.
You're going to be feeling like the bricks just fell off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Sheila, we love you, and thank you so much. And we will definitely do this again, because
thank you for having me.
We are so passionate about this, because it's just so people are hurting. And they feeling some kind of way. They're going through shame. They're going through all kinds of stuff and not living their best life.
Right.
And it's they need to live their best life. Simple as that.
Absolutely.
To be
absolutely
and whole.
Yep.
All right, sweetie pie. Love you.
Love you too. Thank you for having me. I love to come back. This was fun.
Oh yeah, you so much. Coming back.
Yeah.
Girl, we got some things to talk about now.
Oh yeah, we do. All righty. Thank you, dear.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you to the amazing women of a Sister Circle Empowerment Network, ASCEN LLC, and our media partners. Let Just Minding My Business Media promote your business. For information, visit us at jmmb.asistercircle.org. That's jmmb.asistercircle.org. Voiceovers by RCH VoiceWorks, for when you want to be heard. Call 443-620-4115.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.